Salutations, Legion of Doom. Welcome to Podcast of Storm. We're crazy weirdos and we're social awkward outcasts, crazy weirdos, and all of our nerds convene to talk and debate all things pop culture. With me, as always, is my co-host, the Nerdy Okotis, aka the Authenticator, Dalton L. Mortimer.
Hello, everyone. Someday we will get it right. Someday.
To be fair, I'm tired. I had a long work week.
I am also very tired tonight. I think it might be the weather because rain sometimes makes me sleepy. And it's been raining all day.
We just got missed, actually, so that,
It happens.
And yeah, I'm your host / Time Lord wannabe, the brains from pop culture. How's everyone doing tonight?
I am doing okay. As I said, the rain has made me tired.
Yeah. Alright. Give me 1 sec. Yeah. Probably where I was at last time on the article we had.
Yeah. Looks like we may have a new white whale, folks. Because for some unfathomable reason, certain writers just love to hear themselves talk. And yes, I am aware of the irony of me, of all people, saying that, but the difference is I possess this quality known as self-awareness. I know I'm an irrepressible shitlord, so I don't put on unnecessary airs while I'm being a pretentious twat. Unlike some people who claim to be normal and yet waffle on ad nauseum like it's a goddamn dissertation. All the while frequently ignoring the very obvious truths that are straightforwardly in front of them because my framework blindness. But that is why we are here, to repeatedly and with fervence slap them upside the head when they're being dumb. Someday maybe people will stop being stupid and then we won't have to slap so many people upside the head. But I don't foresee that happening anytime soon. So once more into the breach we go, and as soon as Brainstormer finds the thing.
Okay. Found it. Give me 1 sec.
Hey DT.
Oh, what up, Gianto?
I think we're both doing relatively well apart from the tired thing.
Yeah. It's weird. I went to bed early last night. Granted, I've been up since like 5:45 today, so.
Yeah, that'll do it.
I took a nap in a car for like a half hour on the drive. Well, not a half hour drive, like 15 minutes. It's weird. When I was a kid, I could take like pretty short naps and still be rested for the whole day.
Yes, but unfortunately, to be mortal is to age, and to age is to get tired easier.
Hold on 1 sec. I'll be right back.
Oh, you're still beating your head on the brick wall of interviewing, DT? Oh, interfering, sorry. For some reason my brain read that as interviewing. There. Interfering either this bit.
Okay, I'm back.
No. Oh, fuck.
Sorry, I thought I heard my grandfather yell. I think it might have just been the neighbors.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I have loud neighbors, and the worst part is that their backyard is right next to my window.
Aha.
All right.
There's an entire cornfield between us and our nearest next door neighbors. Sometimes living in the middle of nowhere has its advantages.
I don't know. I'll take being a city slicker than a country bumpkin. No offense.
None taken. As soon as I can get out of here, I will be leaving this part of the world as well. This is a place where people come from but never go to.
I mean, I've gone
As soon as I can manage to get on my own, I will be one of the people, hopefully, who got out of this godforsaken part of the universe that nobody remembers and is an entire decade behind the rest of the world, but for both good and ill at any given moment.
All right. So yeah, this was sorry. Yeah, so this was Disney has a plan for Marvel with Thunderbolts. Hold on, let me just give me 1 sec.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to read the full article. Its title.
Yeah.
Real quick, so okay. So yeah, it's from the Atlantic.com. All we wanted. No, that's not from the Atlantic. Sorry. This one.
I was gonna say, I thought it was the Hollywood Reporter.
No, it's from Wall Street Journal.
Ah.
Disney wanted more from Marvel, now it wants less. By Ben Fritz. Oh wait, no, this is this. Oh yeah, no, this is it. This is it. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Written by Ben Fritz, published May 2nd, 2025.
Mm-hmm. And it will probably be a recurring antagonist for us because this is the first article since the Rewriting Ripley days that is probably not going to be able to be finished in even 2 or 3 sittings. But we'll take a crack at it nonetheless.
It depends because the length I'm seeing on the score bar could also be like the comment section or something of like what it picked up. Because I'm using the archive version, right?
It's possible. If we get to what would otherwise be the end of the article and the rest is comments, then so be it. But it's also possible that Ben likes to hear himself talk in text form, and so here we are.
Okay. Okay. So this, just because like we ended the last, which was Marvel Fatigue, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Marvel Fatigue, the last section. So this is the new section. We're just gonna start off fresh.
Yep.
This section is called More Doom, Less Gloom.
You know, if I had faith in your ability to give us a proper Doom, I would be on board with that. But here's the problem. Rather than do good fan service, which would be getting the most accurate version of Doom with the most high-credentialed actor you could manage, which, by the way, would be either Christoph Waltz or Mads Mikkelsen, if we're actually, allowed to properly fan serve and thus do fan casting. If you had done that, all would be right with the world. But instead of doing that, which would have been so much easier and would have made so much more organic sense, you endeavored to get RDJ back on the team, and so you decided to take the infamous Iron Man run, where Doom was wearing the Iron Man armor for a bit, and the what if Tony Stark was Sorcerer Supreme hypothetical that neither Iron Man fans nor Doctor Strange fans like, and combine them so that we could have a version of Doctor Doom who was an evil alternate universe Tony Stark, which is bad and counterintuitive and combined of bad and counterintuitive ideas. So I have no faith in their ability to give us a proper Doom because they have no intention of giving us anything recognizable as Doctor Doom. They are entirely, apparently, committed to the let's get RDJ back in the spotlight no matter how we do it. And that results in this version of Doctor Doom, the checks notes, 4th version of Doctor Doom, still not being anything recognizable as Doctor Doom. The Roger Corman Fantastic Four is still the closest thing we are likely to get to a proper version of Doctor Doom, and it makes me go insane because, god damn it, we're 0 for 4, damn it. Or soon to be 0 for 4 at any rate.
Again, and I know you and I have had this back and forth several times, right? And honestly, yeah, I would love either Mads Mikkelsen, who is top choice, or Christoph Waltz, who while he was Blofeld in James Bond, which I think is the character he portrayed in that was kind of similar, I think, to Doom, kind of.
Honestly, I'd rather he played Doom more akin to the character he played in Inglourious Bastards. Obviously, minus the Nazi regalia.
No, I'm not. I'm just saying, like, a character within a kind of big budget movie of the sorts, right?
Mm-hmm.
My point is, I'm not sure if he'd be willing to sign on for multiple movies. So that's why I'm a little hesitant to say Christoph Waltz.
Well, and there's always the problem of what does Christoph Waltz think of genre content. Given how closely he's worked with Quentin Tarantino over the years, I suspect he wouldn't be one of those comic book genres bad because derp reasons people.
Yeah, again, and
again, it wouldn't be the first time in creation that people in Hollywood were hypocrites, so I don't know.
But, I mean, again, I remember listening to an interview that Quentin Tarantino did at one time a few years back. This was actually back when I was in high school, so I think it was only like a year old when I listened to it. He said if he ever, because he grew up reading comics, right? Like in the 70s, I believe, 60s, 70s. He mentioned that a movie he wanted to do, like a Marvel superhero, he would ever love to do like a movie on, would be Luke Cage, because he remember reading those comics growing up.
And aside from anything else, why in God's name, or rather in this case I suppose one of Aval's name, did Kevin Feige not immediately go, here is $100 million, give us your best Luke Cage, Quentin?
Other than that, let him be the showrunner or something for the TV show on Netflix.
Which, okay, in fairness, now that they are retconning the Netflix Defenders verse into the proper continuity this time, they might do a sequel series of Luke Cage similar to Daredevil Born Again, and if they were smart, and had a business savvy bone in their bodies, they would go, "Hey, Quentin, fancy doing a
Well,
TV show? Go nuts."
okay, to not play devil's advocate, but to point out an issue that could have happened. The way Quentin Tarantino pitched it, it would have been in the style of blaxploitation, similar to blaxploitation movies, because obviously
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of what the character was based off of at the time when he was created.
Uh-huh. It was the 70s. This was a
Yeah,
thing.
yeah. And people being the namby-pamby, spineless, overly sensitive bastards they are today, that might not fly with them. Granted, Tarantino has never really given too much of a shit about that.
And given also movies like Black Klansman have kind of reinvented the blaxploitation subgenre, and people like Jordan Peele kind of do the modern day equivalent of blaxploitation. I'd say Ryan Coogler as well, but frankly, I think Ryan Coogler is a much better creative than Jordan Peele, which is why Sinners is so much better than Get Out, Us, or Nope.
Yeah, I think because the thing with like Ryan Coogler and honestly, I don't mind Jordan Peele. He's not a bad. I don't think he's a bad creator. I just think the issue is he focuses on.
I think the issue is he kind of has a chip on his shoulder, and that chip on his shoulder makes him hyperfixate on this one gimmick he has, which is what if classic sci-fi horror but with black people, which is straight up racist, especially when you consider that he has explicitly stated he will never hire a white actor to play a lead in one of his movies. And again, this may or may not be why Ryan Coogler is better at being a filmmaker than Jordan Peele, because while they come from similar backgrounds, I think Ryan Coogler has managed to survive in Hollywood without developing that resentful chip on his shoulder, and that's why he's able to better incorporate quote unquote blackness into his stories without, wedging it in with all the subtlety of a sledgehammer.
Right. Anyway, we rambled on now enough.
Yeah, moving on.
Since Marvel's early years, Feige's Parliament has gone to a retreat every fall in Palm Springs, California, where they would plan out the future of the MCU. The get-together in 2023 was somber. Many of Marvel's movies and TV shows weren't working. The studio had just laid off employees for the first time in its history. Parliament members discussed whether they could salvage plans for Avengers: The Kang Dynasty. They also talked about a new TV strategy in which shows would have plots divorced from the MCU, making them easier for new fans to understand.
Again, this is the wrong lesson to learn from the thing. The issue, frankly, was that you should have had this conversation basically as soon as Endgame ended its theatrical run. You should have been planning this from basically the day after Endgame left the theaters. You should have been planning, okay, what's the next thing? But apparently, y'all basically sat on your ass for 3 years during the COVID lockdowns, which I wouldn't blame you for necessarily, except Zoom technology and Skype exist. And being as Zoom technology and Skype exist, the one thing you could get away with during COVID that would have, harmed no one and wouldn't have violated lockdown restrictions would have been having the kind of conceptual meetings that really should have been had sometime between when Endgame came out and when WandaVision came out, which was the first thing after Endgame to be released, unless I am misremembering. But point being, after Phase 3 had wrapped, y'all should have had a meeting of, okay, Thanos worked, the Thanos / the Infinity Saga worked like a charm. What's the next equivalent? And had you actually, planned this out instead of throwing literally anything and everything at the wall to see what sticks first, you could have meaningfully done a multiverse saga. Granted, I wouldn't have done a multiverse saga first thing after Endgame. I would have done a Horde of Celestials as the next big bad, and then after them, I would have done Galactus. But that's just me. But point being, between that and basically scrapping all of your original ideas, because the original idea before James Gunn got temporarily canceled was to do a cosmic-oriented version of the Marvel Universe, with James Gunn kind of being the Kevin Feige of the cosmic MCU, which, frankly, that would have worked. It would have worked excellently, but between, again, not doing anything with your time during the COVID lockdowns and James Gunn getting canceled right around the time that COVID hit, you had to scrap that, and apparently multiverse was the next best thing you could do, which, no, but unfortunately the die has been cast already. There's no point in me belly aching that you really shouldn't have focused on adapting all new, all different Marvel, and you really shouldn't have focused on the multiverse. But here we are. You did it. Now you're doing the thing you should have done 4 fucking years ago and some change. Okay, so Ra, I suppose. Moving on.
Let me scroll down a bit. The company decided to cut back significantly on TV production quantity. In our case, diluted quality. I mean,
I'm not convinced those two are necessarily related, considering that you have different, creative teams on each project. The issue was that you... Okay, here's my theory. My theory is Marvel got it in their heads that they were untouchable, and that anything they made would have been good by definition, and that was the biggest mistake. Because had you actually maintained quality control on WandaVision, on Loki, on No Way Home, on Multiverse Madness, had you maintained consistent quality control on all of your Phase 4 projects, we wouldn't be in the situation we currently are in. The problem is that rather than stick to the strategy that worked for the first 3 phases, which is get your creatives as familiar with the comics as possible and figure out how to best adapt that for the cinematic universe, you got it into your head that we should actively spite and subvert the source material, and that over-familiarity with the source material was actually a problem, which allowed you to hire people like Jac Schaeffer, who has redeemed herself since in the form of Agatha all along, but that's neither here nor there. My point is that no matter how talented Jac Schaeffer apparently ended up being, and good for her, you let her proceed creating WandaVision without familiarizing herself with any of the comics or any of the source materials that she would have needed to be involved with in order to make a better version of what WandaVision was trying to be. And because you let her not be made familiar with the source material, she ended up, and I'm willing to concede that it was mostly by accident in her particular case, she ended up actively spiting all of the detail work and all of the source material that the audience was actually invested in. And that's where the beginning of MCU Phase 4 being a downturn began. And unfortunately, despite me having no issues whatsoever with Sam Raimi, apparently Marvel let him not watch WandaVision before making Multiverse of Madness, and that was also a mistake, for exactly the same reason as I just outlined with hiring people like Jac Schaeffer who have no familiarity with the source material. Because the first 3 phases of the MCU worked on the premise that even if you did hire someone with no familiarity with the source material, you were obliged to get them familiar with it so as to maintain continuity. And I can guarantee you that if you mandated Sam Raimi watch WandaVision, which you should have done, and it was utterly inexcusable that you didn't do, both he and Michael Waldron probably could have done a better continuation of what began there with Multiverse Madness. Now, most of the bad parts of Multiverse Madness were Michael Waldron's fault, because you took an inexperienced writer who had written one episode of Rick and Morty and then told him to write an entire Prestige series in the form of Loki Season 1, and then, having had less than 5 seconds of rest between writing Loki and then getting bumped up the line again to co-writing Multiverse of Madness, predictably that didn't go well, because you can't take an inexperienced writer and expect them to produce Oscar-worthy content for you in the space of 5 minutes. That being said, the smart move there would have been just having Sam Raimi write the whole freaking thing, but that's neither here nor there. My point is that this attitude of the source material doesn't matter, we're untouchable, we're made of Teflon, we can make the story whatever we want because who actually cares or is invested in the fandom thing, is what made Phase 4 through 6 shit. It's because what made the first 3 phases of the MCU work was deference and familiarity with the source material and also the fandom, not to mention continuity. And by eschewing that, you've eschewed any sense of quality control, and here we are. Moving on.
Companies had to cut back significantly, reduction in quantity, in our case, diluted quality, and Marvel has suffered greatly from that. Iger said at the New York Times DealBook Summit that November. Marvel is releasing only 1 or 2 live-action streaming series annually starting next year, and has already ordered multiple seasons of some, so their stories can continue without crossing over to the big screen. A senior executive is overseeing television, so Feige can focus on film.
Okay, again, I think that's taking the wrong lesson from the mistake you made, but okay, fine. I don't think it's going to make that much difference, though, because no matter how many or how few projects you make, if there's no semblance of quality control and no semblance towards deference both to the source material and to the fandom who cares about said source material, you're just going to keep making these kind of mistakes. This is where I actually will credit Jac Schaeffer, because while she definitely made massive fuck you mistakes in the case of WandaVision, she learned from those mistakes because she actually desired to be worthy of the kind of obsessive fandom that poo-pooed her at the end of WandaVision for the ending of WandaVision was shit. And as a result, she was able to improve as a writer and give good nods not only to the Marvel source material and to the fans thereof, but also to genuine IRL magical shit, which for a show based on witches is definitely appreciated. But as a result, there is a massive qualitative gulf between WandaVision and Agatha All Along, because WandaVision was 7 episodes of waiting for stuff to happen, 1 episode of stuff actually happening, and then 1 episode that did its damnedest to burn down and shit on and make things unhappen at the end of it. Whereas Agatha All Along had 7 episodes of good, solid content, equivalent to WandaVision episode 8, and 1 episode that was bad and useless, but mostly so contained bad uselessness, and 1 episode that was kind of a bittersweet kind of meh episode, which is a far better batting average than WandaVision was. So, if you actually get the foot out of your ass, Marvel, and return to your semblance of quality control, you might find at least some of your creatives that you hire are capable of actually doing good fan service when they realize that that is part of their job. Jac Schaeffer to her credit, learned from the mistakes of WandaVision and improved massively in the case of Agatha all along. If you made that your standard, if you required your creatives to actually give half of a shit about the source material and the fans who care about said source material, not to mention continuity, we could actually make something out of these remaining months before Doomsday. But because you've spent at least 4 years not giving a shit about continuity, not giving a shit about the source material, and actively spiting the fan base as much as humanly possible, unfortunately, I think too much damage has already been done. Because there are good things in phases 4 through 6. Things like Agatha, things like Werewolf by Night, things like the Guardians Christmas special, things like Guardians 3, things like No Way Home, things like Deadpool and Wolverine, etc. But, unfortunately, for every one or every couple of good things that phases 4 through 6 has in them, you've got dozens of things that are either complete non-entities, like Echo, or actively horrible, like She-Hulk and Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And unfortunately, when your entire premise as literally a universe is based on the idea of everything is connected and everything overlaps with everything else, if you make the majority of your shit either forgettable or bad, and then you try to make a story that combines all of those properties together, frankly, all the good stuff, unless you ignore all the bad stuff, all the good stuff isn't going to be strong enough to hold up all the bad stuff. And unfortunately, it seems like you've put yourself in a corner to where you are now basically obligated to make some nods to the bad stuff because you weren't smart enough to decanonize all the bad stuff and just keep the good stuff. I wish we lived in a world where we could just ignore everything that was bad about phases 4 through 6 and keep all the good stuff in phases 4 through 6. But unfortunately, you can't do that. And not only that, but you've lost the normie audience because when your batting average is 3 good things to 1 bad thing, most people can ignore the 1 bad thing. But when your batting average is 5 bad things for every 1 good thing, people lose faith in your ability to provide the 1 good thing. And that's why shows like Agatha and Daredevil Born Again, despite being really quite good, didn't make viewership numbers or ratings enough, because how many times did someone who was a normie or the general audience go into a Marvel show hoping that it was going to be good and get She-Hulk level horribleness until they finally went, I hear good things about Agatha and I hear good things about Werewolf by Night and I hear good things about Daredevil, but I'm not willing to risk it because every other time the media has lied to me and claimed that stuff like She-Hulk was good, even though they were god-awful. Unfortunately, we're now in a boy who cried wolf situation. You've claimed bad things were good so often that now people can't tell the difference between a genuinely good thing and a thing that the mainstream media is blowing smoke up people's asses for. You've lost the trust of the audience, both the hardcore fandom that you've actively spited, and the general audience who really just want to be entertained by good shit. And now, basically, there's almost no win state, because you can either ignore all the bad shit and hope to make something decent out of the good shit, or you can try to weave in everything together, which is going to result in a utter mess and is probably going to kill what remains of your market share. You've kind of trapped yourself between a rock and a hard place here. Moving on.
Alright. Feige has been talking for more than a year to Robert Downey Jr., who played Iron Man and was beloved by fans, about returning to the MCU. They discussed his playing Doctor Doom, one of Marvel's best-known comic book villains, but they hadn't determined when or in what film.
Okay, but here's the problem. That's not what people want. People who like RDJ in the MCU like him as Tony Stark. The thing that makes Iron Man as a franchise work and makes all of Tony's appearances and all the other MCU stuff work is because by basically sheer luck, you found an actor who perfectly encapsulates what that character is supposed to be, and he matches the template of what that character is supposed to be so well that people instantly clicked with him. But people don't want RDJ for the sake of having RDJ. They want him to be playing Tony Stark. And the people who already know anything about Doctor Doom know that he has almost nothing in common with Tony Stark, which leads you to the option of you can either make him a multiversal variant of Tony Stark because you're being cheeky little shits, which is going to please neither Iron Man fans nor Doctor Doom fans, or you can try to convince RDJ to do a Eastern European accent maybe and try to make him play a more straight up version of Doom, which could hypothetically work, I suppose, but then a lot of the normies are going to go, why isn't he an alternate universe Tony Stark if he's being played by RDJ? Or you could have done the sensible thing, which is get RDJ out of the equation entirely and find someone who can actually play Doom on Doom's own merits. But you basically have chosen to avoid that option entirely. So your options are somehow find a way for alternate universe Tony Stark to become a surrogate for Doctor Doom, which would be combining infamous Iron Man with Sorcerer Supreme's Tony Stark what if, or confuse everyone by having RDJ play Doom properly, but not as a version of Tony, which is going to confuse everyone. These are your only options at this point. The sensible option would be to realize just because people like RDJ in one role does not mean they like him for the sake of liking him. They like him as Tony Stark. In the same way, occasional references in Deadpool and Wolverine aside, when people say they like Chris Evans in the MCU, they mean they like him as Captain America. Or to use a DC reference here, people who say they like Matt Ryan like him as Constantine. They don't like him just on his own merits.
Actually,
so frankly, go ahead.
I knew Matt Ryan before he was John Constantine.
Well, yes, but you see what I'm saying. Matt Ryan is to Constantine as RDJ is to Tony Stark, or as Chris Evans is to Captain America. People don't want to see the actor just for the sake of seeing the actor. They want them to play the characters that they're designed for, or the characters that they embody really, really well.
And you're not going to ask how I know him before Constantine?
I assume he was in a whole bunch of other stuff before he got the role. I don't particularly care.
Okay, zap all the fun, all you... God damn it.
My point is that people who want RDJ in the MCU want there to be some way to resurrect Tony, or bring Tony back as an AI like they did in the comics, or have him be like an AI voice like Jarvis or Friday was, or something. They don't want RDJ playing a completely different character from the character he was playing previously. So the only options are to somehow make Doctor Doom an alternate universe Tony Stark, which is going to piss everyone off, both Iron Man fans and Doctor Doom fans, or have RDJ put on an Eastern European accent and have him play Doctor Doom straight, but that's going to confuse everybody who's expecting him to be playing a version of Tony Stark. You basically have no way out. The only way out, the sensible way out, is to do the counterintuitive thing and tell RDJ to become a resurrected version of Tony Stark, and have him fight Doom, a version of Doom who can be played by someone who's actually qualified and capable of playing Doom as Doom is written, rather than mending Doom out of shape to fit RDJ, which is what you're apparently trying to do, which is the worst possible version and the least fan servicey thing you can do, despite the fact that this is basically only being done because the suits in Hollywood can't tell the difference between pandering and fan service. Moving on.
Edward Kenroy from Assassin's Creed Black Flag was what I was going to say if don't care to entertain something at the moment.
You were kind of messing up my whole point by bringing things which weren't admissible into the fore. That's why I thought it was best to just kind of ignore it. My point was to offer a comparison with RDJ in Marvel and Matt Ryan for DC.
No, I got your point.
Yeah. So you can kind of see why bringing up Matt Ryan's other roles would have completely kind of derailed my whole point.
Moving on.
Yeah, moving on.
Marvel executives concluded Downey was the solution to their Avengers problem. They retitled the 2026 movie Avengers Doomsday with their biggest star in the title role. Feige also rehired Anthony and Joe Russo, who directed Downey in Avengers Endgame.
You do realize that Tony was not the star of Infinity War, which was a much, several times over, much better movie than Endgame. Like, I know it's a somewhat controversial opinion now because people have nostalgia blinders for Endgame, but Endgame was the beginning of Marvel's empty, calorie-free, pandering as fan service problem. Because there is no real deference paid to completing character arcs or to actually making things work in universe in Endgame. It's a glorified clip show with inconsistent and nonsensical time travel rules, and most of its biggest fan service, quote unquote, moments were essentially pandering memes, like the Captain America wielding Mjolnir thing. That had nothing to do with Steve's character arc. It had nothing to do with Thor's character arc. It had nothing to do with the Avengers as a group's character arc, and it had nothing to do with the world building as established in the MCU up until that point. It was just there to reference a meme. And that is why, frankly, a lot of people will say that this didn't start until Phase 4, but I would say if you remove the nostalgia blinders people have for Endgame, you would notice how much of a quality gulf there is between Infinity War, which is the much superior movie, and Endgame, which was a piece of shit. My point being, if you go back to when the Russos were actually still good, or at least allowed to be good, because I will say, I think a lot of the problem with Endgame was there were probably dozens upon dozens of pages of studio notes, and no director can really make something good under that many layers of studio notes. But point being, Infinity War, the much superior Avengers movie directed by the Russos, didn't really have a main character other than Thanos. Like, Tony was not the main character of Infinity War. Neither was Cap. Neither was the Guardians. Nobody in the hero team was the main character of Infinity War. Thanos was the main character of Infinity War, if anything. Thanos and Gamora. Because their father-daughter relationship basically is what the entire universe literally revolved around in that movie. And so much the better. But point being, RDJ was not the secret sauce. And frankly, Endgame would have been successful no matter what it was, because it was supposedly the culmination of the first 3 phases. I would still argue that Infinity War was a much better steward of that title, but I will do that no matter what happens. Point being, the best the Russos did when it came to Avengers movies was a movie, Infinity War, that basically had no main character. And trying to make RDJ the main character, especially if he's not even going to be playing the character everyone knows him for, which is Iron Man, or if he's playing a version of Tony Stark who's evil because we have to fit Tony into the Doom mold somehow, that's just going to make everyone really annoyed and make the pandering even more obvious. Again, the main thing that prevents people from seeing the pandering of Endgame is the nostalgia blinders people have over it. But once you remove the nostalgia blinders, you realize that even Tony's death scene, while it slightly better fit into his character arc of going from egotist to self-sacrificial in some way, even that was very underwhelming for all the build-up that Endgame had. And if you treat Endgame like it is the movie people should be emulating, and not Infinity War, which is actually the movie people should be emulating, because it's how you do a massive cast of characters and have them each have their own character arcs by splitting them up into different teams and having their basically a vignette structure. If you try to emulate Endgame rather than Infinity War, I don't even think the nostalgia blinders are going to kick in this time, because most of the world building that led to Endgame being a big freaking deal in most people's minds hasn't happened this time. Like I said, more than half of the projects in phases 4 and 5 have been shit or bland. And the few good efforts of phases 4 and 5 haven't really been connected to much of anything, with the possible exception of Multiverse of Madness, which even then, thanks to Michael Waldron, is less liked than it realistically should be. But nevertheless, it's because it has flaws in it, courtesy of Michael Waldron's lack of experience as a writer, that make people have a negative opinion of it. So even some of the good stuff has flaws because of the way Marvel decided to handle things. So how exactly are you gonna make a Endgame style crowd pleaser if like 80 to 90% of the stuff you'd be basing it on is stuff people actively disdain or didn't like in the first place? Moving on.
All right. Bringing back the talent behind a blockbuster for a sequel is one of the most expensive propositions in Hollywood. But people who have worked with Feige say he likes to go back to people he trusts, particularly in moments of urgency. To get fans excited about the new plan, Marvel had Downey take off a Doctor Doom mask and reveal himself at San Diego Comic-Con 2024, a moment that immediately went viral online.
With his hair dyed gray for no adequately explained reason, and I hope to God that's not how he looks in the movie, because aside from anything else, Doctor Doom fans all over the world are currently screaming at the top of their lungs, the reason he wears the mask is because his face is supposed to be scarred, you morons. So if you don't give RDJ scar makeup, then you might as well just call defeat at this point, because if you're not even gonna like pay homage to the aesthetics of Doom by having his face be scarred and stuff, you really are just hoping that by hook or by crook you can create a endgame level event by combining paper clips and gum, pretty much. You're holding it together with nothing but duct tape at this point, and the duct tape adhesive is fading rapidly. Moving on.
All right. Bringing back the talent. I read that. I saw the whole announcement, and not to exaggerate, I fell to my knees. Bailey Brown, a 25-year-old teacher's aide, said while peeking at the red carpet for the Thunderbolts premiere in. Oh, sorry. Bailey Bowen, a 25-year-old teacher's aide, said while peeking at the red carpet for the Thunderbolts premiere in Hollywood Monday. In his introduction to the screening that night, Thunderbolts director Jake Schreier said, "When I first started on the movie, Kevin said, make it different. This weekend's box office receipts will show whether that's what Marvel fans want."
I will say that the Thunderbolts is different in a good way, in the sense that it was a competent movie, which is not something we've had in a while. Because even most of Phases 4 and 5's good stuff has been largely confined to the small screen, with the exception possibly of No Way Home, Multiverse of Madness, and Deadpool and Wolverine, which also, not coincidentally, are the only movies in the so-called multiverse saga that have anything to do with the multiverse, which is probably not a good sign, but, never mind. But point being, again, you find yourself in a odd place where the thing that makes Thunderbolt stand out compared to its contemporaries is that Black Panther 2, Thor 4, I can't even remember, and Ant-Man 3 were not handled competently. They were basically thrown together at the last second in all three cases. And if a movie being competently handled is enough of a rarity for people to be pleasantly surprised by the fact that Thunderbolt isn't thrown together at the last second, you might be in a lot deeper doo-doo than you think you are, because if you can't generally manage to make a standalone movie work, which, again, Thor 4 didn't really work, neither did Black Panther 2, homages to Chadwick Boseman notwithstanding, and neither did Ant-Man 3. And by the way, considering that Jonathan Majors had it in his contract that only he could play Kang, the whole reason why they switched from Kang to Doom is because Jonathan Majors got himself in some hot water, and yet he's the only one who can play Kang in the MCU according to his contract. So, quick, we have to find another equivalent to Kang at the last possible second. This is yet another case of, honestly, Marvel currently being where DC was like 10 years ago. This attitude of we can like reflexively react to any negative fan press by throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks. That's where DC was basically from 2013 to 2023 or thereabouts. And that is basically currently where Marvel feels like they are. Granted, it still feels a little bit like DC is very much in that same hole, because they're still doing the we're throwing everything at the wall and hoping something sticks approach. But unfortunately, they don't seem to have learned their lesson much either. But at least now Marvel and DC are on the same footing, in the sense that they're both scrambling to make something decent out of a series of increasingly bad decisions. It's just not a good place for the IPs to be if you're a fan of them, or if you want the audience to come out and see them, because I gotta say, as a fan of comic book media in general, I'm really scared, man, because it seems like they're gonna ruin what remains of both universes before they've even really gotten off the ground. Moving on, though.
Hello?
Still here.
Okay.
Were you having trouble hearing me?
No, well, yes. It was just because, like, it was getting super robotically and you were glitching out. I think it was ultimately on my end.
Okay. Hopefully DT can verify for us whether that is or is not the case. Fuck. But when he comes back and catches up to this point in the live stream, hopefully he will be able to express to us whether that was the case on his end as well. Anyway, moving on.
All right. In many ways, Marvel has reverted to its strategy from before to the streaming boom, as if the past 5 years have been a bad dream. As he did when Marvel Studios started, Feige has an expansive vision for his company's big screen future. The upcoming Avengers movies are expected to introduce the X-Men, one of Marvel's most popular superhero teams, to the MCU. Feige has told colleagues he has a 10-year plan for the characters.
I'm sorry, Kev, but I'm not optimistic for that because you're having a hard time maintaining a single universe's continuity. I can't imagine mass retconning an entire universe's continuity to make mutants a thing. Because for most of the MCU's tenure, you haven't had legal or financial access to the mutants. And frankly, I'd rather you just did a proper send-off to what remains of the mainline universe than worry too much about mixing the X-Men in. Because I'm horrified that he's gonna do the, like, pandering to normies thing, which is make everything that isn't a mutant in the MCU into a mutant somehow. And that worries me because that means sacrificing the cosmic corner, the magic corner, large swaths of the street level corner, and God knows what else. And yes, part of that is because I like the magic and cosmic corners respectively, and they need to be left alone. But it's also due to the fact that anyone who cares about the mainline continuity probably isn't going to like just having the mutants show up because reasons. And there's only so much because reasons you can tongue-in-cheek get away with because you have not Daredevil, Deadpool there to make jokes about it. Like, some things that don't make sense about Doomsday and Secret Wars, you might be able to get away with Wade coming in there and going, hey, this doesn't make a sense. But there's only so much goodwill you have left to burn. And unfortunately, fortunately for me, unfortunately for you, Kevin, most of the goodwill you have left is in the magic and supernatural corners, not the mutant corner and not the scientific corners. So if you get rid of everything related to the Scarlet Witch actually being a witch, and you get rid of basically everything that tied into Doctor Strange and Agatha, you basically have neutered your entire slate for the last 5 years. Which amuses me on a cynical, maybe I do just kind of want to watch the world burn for the Kex thing. But as a fan of continuity in general and the magical and cosmic sides of the MCU in particular, if you sacrifice the magic and the cosmic on the altar of everything's a mutant now, I'm going to riot. Your studios will burn, I swear to fucking God. Moving on.
All right. One sec. All right, so this is from HBR.org. How People Are Really Using Gen AI in 2025 by Mark Zal Sanders. April 9th, published April 9th, 2025.
I didn't realize this article was that old. I saw people covering it like last week. The fuck? Okay.
Oh, okay. All right.
Go ahead.
I think this. Oh. Oh,
By the
goddamn.
way, I think you are having technical difficulties because your icon has disappeared.
Oh, it hasn't.
Yes, it has. On my end, it looks like the generic white circle they substitute in for when in StreamYard when you don't have an icon.
Not on my end.
Yeah, which says to me that you're having technical difficulties.
I don't know what you want me to do about that.
I mean, I guess you could try popping out and popping back in and hoping that fixes it, but I don't know. Let's proceed and hope that. Okay, now it's a red. Now it's red. There it goes. Now it's back.
Maybe I said change icons real quick.
Okay. I don't know why it banished your icon to the netherworld for a second there, but it did. Anyway, moving on.
Well, I'll be honest, I did not know this. I thought because it didn't give me like one of those. I'd have to subscribe to the actual article. I didn't know that. I have to subscribe to Harvard Business Review. So
try seeing if there's a archive of it somewhere.
Hold on. There isn't. I'll make one and we can do it next week.
Okay.
Alright, hold on. Because it does take a while for that thing to load when I'm archiving stuff.
Yep. This is why we got in the habit of archiving everything, folks, because these websites are ridiculous with how often they cockblock you for the sake of money. And I don't enjoy this content enough to treat it like porn.
No one pays for porn these days, man.
Well, not if you're a cheap son of a bitch.
It's
Joking.
free. I don't.
Porn that actually has production values is sometimes still paywalled. Granted, I don't think most people care about production values in porn, but
You would.
Have I ever pretended to be anything other than a pretentious fucker? In this case, quite literally. Granted, most of my porn is romance novels because, frankly, the people who do porn aren't usually that attractive.
Depends on what porn you're watching, but okay.
There's only one porn star that I like, and his name is Zeb Atlas, and I don't even know if he does stuff anymore.
I didn't even know that.
You opened this box, and you are now horrified at what's inside of it.
I didn't open it, okay? You're the one who said it first, okay?
Fair enough, I suppose. Anyway, moving on.
All right. So, like I said, HarvardBusinessReview.org. How People Are Really Using Gen AI in 2025, written by Mark Zhao and Sanders, published April 9th, 2025. Summary: last year, HBO published a piece on how people are using Gen AI. Much has happened over the past 12 months. We now have custom GPTs, AI tailored for narrower sets of requirements. New kids are on the block, such as DeepSeek and Grok, providing more competition and choice. Millions of ears pricked up as Google debuted their podcast generator, Notebook LM. OpenAI launched many new models, now along with the promise to consolidate them all into one unified interface. Chain of thought reasoning, whereby AI sacrifices speed for depth and better answers, came into play. Voice commands now enable more different interactions, for example, to allow us to use Gen AI while driving, and costs have substantially reduced with access broadened over the past 12 hectic months. With all of these changes, we've decided to do an updated version of the article based on data from the past year. Here's what the data shows about how people are using Gen AI now.
This should be interesting.
How much you want to guess it is porn?
Well, porn / romantic partner / friendship / companionship, probably. Because I know I use character AI for essentially romantic self-insert things. I can feel your disappointment through the internet.
What?
Never mind.
No, I knew that about you already. You've told me before.
Yep.
So I don't really judge you on. Okay. A year ago, I wrote a piece about how people were really using Gen AI. This article seemed to hit a note. It was popular, featuring viral posts, and the beautiful accompanying infographic has been shared far and wide. The use cases split almost equally between personal and business needs, with roughly half spanning both. Since then, the hype around AI, Gen AI, and large language models (LLMs) has only amplified. User interest has doubled. Investment in AI is skyrocketing. Governments are taking more empathic and explicit positions, and the stakes are about as high as they get. Future of humanity, according to some.
See, I don't buy this like fear mongering about AI. Just because governments and corporations are taking note of something doesn't mean it's actually important. This looks to me like one of those circular logic things. The corporations have decided to take it seriously because the corporations have decided to take it seriously. But and this is going to be, I guess, one of my recurring bits throughout this article. Despite how much resources is getting funneled into AI, I haven't seen people actively using it for more than just a curiosity at this point. Like, the most use people do get out of it seems to be the AI boyfriend / girlfriend / friends or whatever. I don't see much, partially because of people's psychotic fear of AI for no adequately explained reason other than everyone has seen at least one Terminator movie where the AI gets out of hand. But that's precisely it. That fear that keeps people skeptical of AI also frequently keeps them from using it for actual substantive things. So I will be very surprised if most of the predictions of how AI will revolutionize society have actually come to any sort of fruition in the next 10 years. Because if anything, it seems like people use AI either as a replacement for search engines, which isn't a particularly great leap considering that search engines are already kind of large language modeling in nature, or as waifus and husbandos, basically. Which will be amusing from a cultural standpoint of everyone will have their favorite waifu or husbando on file, but in terms of how it will revolutionize civilization and crap, I think most people's hesitancy to trust AI will keep most of the practical, like, business altering shit from happening or from materializing. And as soon as corporations realize that, they'll probably stop investing so heavily in it. And once they stop investing so heavily in it, the paper tiger will probably fall. I I feel like at this point, AI is very much a bubble. People are investing in it because they think it might be useful later, only to soon realize how little applicability that will actually have. And then as soon as they realize that, the bubble will pop and will be sitting here in 5 years going, remember when everyone was so hyperfixated on AI being this revolutionary thing, and all it really did was create husbandos and waifus for everyone? Like, hear me now, quote me later. I suspect I will be proven right in the next 5 to 10 years. And if I'm wrong, I would gladly admit to being wrong. But I really suspect that a lot of the sensationalism around AI is kind of self-perpetuating. As soon as the corporations wake up to the fact they're basically conning themselves and have bought into their own con, the AI market will probably dry up pretty quickly. There might be some interesting technology in the interim developed, but I really don't think it's going to have this massively, like, it's not going to turn into an AI singleton. As much as, frankly, that would be, in my opinion, probably a good thing for humanity, if we could get automation and AI to do a lot of the menial, miserable jobs that nobody actually wants to do, and then the rest of humanity could focus on shit they actually find enjoyable for 5 seconds. But who knows? Granted, it's corporations who are currently funding this shit, so they'll find some way of taking out all the good aspects of AI while they're in the process of developing it. Or something, who knows. Moving on.
Yeah, HBR editors and I felt a need to update the research, much as happened over the past 12 months. We now have custom GPAs, ITAs for narrowing sets of requirements. New kids are on the block, such as DeepSec and Grok.
You already read that part.
No, that was like that might have been the summary.
Oh, all right then.
Actually, no, yeah, it's bit for bit. So actually, you know what? I'll just skip that.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh wait, actually, hold on. No, yeah, that's just the whole thing. Okay, never mind. So let me move from that then. The aspiration for this rebooted piece is exactly as it was a year ago. When people see others making effective, productive advantage yielding uses of technology, they follow suit. Real-world use cases change behavior in ways and to an extent that PR, through leadership and technological brilliance, simply cannot. So, by surfacing use cases from the depths of hundreds of subreddits, we hope to increase awareness and accelerate the really positive and beneficial application of Gen AI.
I would like to also note that if your main source for this information is Reddit, you may be getting a skewed picture because Reddit is not Reddit doesn't map onto reality. It's too cloistered and centered for that. But after noting that, on we go.
All right. Sorry. Just give me 1 sec. All right. For this piece, I adopted the same methodology as last year, but scoured more data. There was much more to scour and limited the results to the past 12 months. I looked at online forums, Reddit, Quora, as well as articles that included explicit, specific applications of the technology, perhaps owing to its inherent pseudonymity. Reddit again yielded the richest insights. I read through them myself and added each relevant post to the tally for that category. Several days later, I merged with the count and the quotes for each of the new 100 use cases.
Part of me wants to make sure they're not like reading through the actual chat histories, but the other part of me wants them to be reading through the chat histories just so they can see all the depraved things people get up to with their waifus and husbando AI. Like, part of me is like, I don't want my chat history with the dozens of character AIs I've chatted with over the months to get public because I don't particularly think it's their business. But part of me also wants to force them to read through all of it and just grab popcorn and watch as they get increasingly more horrified. To troll or not to troll? That is the question. Moving on.
All right. For this, all right, read it. The 2025 top 100 Gen AI use case report lists the top 100 applicants now in 2025, rated according to perceived usefulness and scale of impact, SS quality. Qualitatively by expert review, and includes a quote or several for each. As before, this is where the real gold lies, but note that it's produced in its raw, unedited form, and therefore not for the faint-hearted. This time I
So
steered
you
hard.
did have to go through everyone's chat histories. Good. I like it when stuck-up Ponzi social scientists have to remember that people exist and are real things. It's one of those "it serves you right to suffer" thing. You wanted access to people's private chat histories? Well, now you have it. Good luck finding your way out again. Psychological warfare by sheer just gooning potential. Lol. Moving on. Yep.
This time I've steered harder to include quotes that are more explicitly and immediately useful. Results and trends. There are 38 new entries in the top 100 use cases. This reinforces what we know, that there is still so much change going on. Here are the top 10 use cases. Unfortunately, I'm not sure why. It could be just my internet or my computer, probably my computer. I am assuming diagram shown here or something cannot be shown.
All right. I'm sure they'll summarize it and shit through the text though. So
Therapy, more on this one later, is a new top use case. There are two other entrants in the top 5: organizing my life and finding purpose. These 3 uses reflect efforts towards self-actualization, making a shift from technical to more emotive applications over the past year. I organized the use cases into 6 broader themes and found the following changes from 2024. Personal and professional support is now the largest theme by far, stealing most of its new ground from technical assistance and troubleshooting.
Yeah. Most of the actual practical use to which people are putting the AI is basically using it as a replacement for Google. The other is, as mentioned, the companion / romance / fantasy aspect of AI. Which is ironic. We first developed AI, and the one thing we teach it to do is mimic human emotions, despite the fact that basically every dystopian science fiction story where AI take over is basically reliant on the fact that AI can't successfully mimic emotions. And yet, when we actually had access to AI, the first thing we did, or one of the first things we did, was teach it how to mimic human emotions. So it seems like most of our sci-fi is going to get really less predictive as time goes on, which is amusing to me because everyone was worried about the advent of Skynet. Turns out the thing people should have been worried about is being browbeaten by their waifus. Humanity is interesting sometimes. Moving on.
Okay. What users are doing now? Here are some uses from the top 100 this year, along with a quote for each. The full list is here. I've picked out examples that offer particularly clear insights into how people are using technology. Sorry. Just give me a sec. Though it's a little dry.
Yep. Take your time.
Okay. Therapy/companionship. That's number one. Where I'm from in South Africa, mental health barely exists. There's psychologists for one in every 100,000 people, and a psychiatrist for one in every 300,000 people. Large language models are accessible to everyone, and they can help. Unfortunately, data safety is not a concern when your health is deteriorating, and survival is the morning agenda.
On the one hand, I find it kind of shocking there are so few psychologists in South Africa. On the other hand, given that the psychological profession are a bunch of ideologically captured hacks, it's probably a good thing. Because the whole existence of the psychological profession is reliant on the idea that there can be such a thing as a good psychologist, and more nobody trusts psychologists for a very good goddamn reason of them all being stuck-up twats who are more interested in terraforming your mind than they are helping you with anything. Nobody trusts the head shrinkers anymore, and nor should they. Moving on.
Organizing my life. I just asked it to create a timeline for me to clean and organize my house before we have guests staying. Okay.
Yeah, they're using it basically like a combination of Siri, Alexa, and Google as like a personal assistant. And honestly, that's probably the main way in which AI probably will continue to be used. If anything, I can see a world in which, kind of like the Joaquin Phoenix movie Her, the companion aspect of AI and the assistant aspect of AI will kind of merge. So your AI will become your best friend, kind of like Jarvis in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, or Samantha from Her. Moving on.
Okay. Enhanced learning. I've been taking an online course to learn data analysis on my own, and I use ChatGPT as a study guide to explain some stuff that the course kind of glosses over, which I then add to my notes. This helps me reinforce what I'm learning, and it's been hella useful so far.
In other words, ChatGPT is useful if you need information organized or summarized. Again, a mixture of Siri, Alexa, and Google. Moving on.
Healthier living. I just started trying a new eating plan, and calculating the macros with the spreadsheets online meal planners was making me crazy. I just ask for recipes based on my given macro needs per meal and take that list shopping. Then I use the air fryer and rice maker, easy peasy.
Isn't that just kind of a variation on the same thing. Like how many of these could probably be summarized as people are using it as a digital secretary, more or less. Moving on.
All right. Creating a travel itinerary, I asked ChatGPT for an extensive vacation itinerary with many details, such as rustic places to stay and to eat, key things to see, and hidden gems while minimizing driving time. The output was perfect. Okay.
Secretary, again.
Disputing a fine. I received a penalty charge notice for entering a bus lane. The council were after 80, I believe that's pounds, from me for what was about a 20-second stop, if that. I asked ChatGPT to write me an appeal, and this morning got the letter saying that the PCN has been avoided. Thank you, AI, because I would have likely just paid the money if I had to type out a long, boring appeal letter myself.
That one's interesting because that's straight up verging into like lawyer territory. And frankly, I trust the AI more than I trust the average lawyer. So that one actually is somewhat novel because law is one of those hyper dense things that most people don't give a shit about. It's kind of like how there's all those, or at least for those of us in America, there's a whole bunch of middle management firms that do nothing but file taxes because the American tax code is so counterintuitive and overly dense. So if anything, I'm interested to see a world in which maybe AI can do what the likes of like H&R Block do around tax season. Like imagine you could just put a bunch of your like spending data into an AI and go do my taxes for me as accordant with whatever the US regulations are. That's actually a rare case where I think it might be genuinely useful and as more than just a organizer of information or a personal assistant kind of thing. Although I suppose people who are rich enough to afford personal counsel or personal legal representatives do kind of use lawyers in that same sort of secretarial way. It's just interesting to me that the AI is advanced enough to where it can do something as complex as binge through a bunch of legal nonsense or hypothetically do like tax forms and shit for people. Moving on.
All right. Purpose and meaning. More and more of us are using LLMs to find purpose and improve ourselves. Therapy and companionship is now the number one use case. This use case refers to two distinct but related use cases. Therapy involves structured support and guidance to process psychological challenges, while companionship encompasses ongoing social and emotional connection, sometimes with a romantic dimension. I grouped these together last year and this year because both fulfill the fundamental human need for emotional connection and support.
Yeah, the AI is less judgmental and less bitchy and less dickish than most people. So the AI is useful if you want a supportive significant other and you're sick of dealing with the dating market bullshit. This is certainly the way I use AI most often. Moving on.
All right. Many posters talk about how therapy with an AI model was helping them process grief or trauma. 3 advantages to AI-based therapy came across clearly. It's available 24/7. It's relatively inexpensive, even free or to use in some cases, and it comes without the prospect of judgment from another human being.
Yeah, not to mention, unless the actual like AI of the AI has been fucked to death with a bunch of psychological woo-woo, they're not going to accuse you of narcissism for being a man who has emotions that don't abide by the abide by the APA guidelines for men and boys. Granted, this is going to get ruined if they do start lobotomizing the AI and forcing it to shove APA bullshit down people's throats. But realistically, that was more likely to happen with a human who's currently in the psychological profession than not. So you're probably still better off with dealing with the AI, even if it is ideologically captured, because at least when you tell the AI to go fuck itself, it doesn't argue with you. Moving on.
All right. So, bitch. Okay. Sorry, my back is killing me. Alright, the AI as therapy phenomenon has also been noticed in China, and although the debate about the full potential of computerized therapy is ongoing, recent research offers a reassuring perspective that AI-delivered therapeutic interventions have reached a level of sophistication such as they're indistinguishable from human-written therapeutic responses.
Which doesn't mean the AI is super advanced or anything. It's a sign of how ideologically and institutionally captured the psychological profession has become. I.e., hey, shrinks, maybe if you weren't all a bunch of super abrasive cunts trying to terraform people's minds against their own will, you wouldn't be so horribly mistrusted, and people wouldn't be choosing the AI over you. It's the same thing with the AI art thing. All the AI is crap in, crap out, good in, good out. So maybe you should be asking yourself, art school hacks, if the AI can do better than you, is it because the AI is so super advanced, or is it because y'all bought into a bunch of Frankfurt School nonsense and therefore are shit at your jobs? Moving on.
All right. Sorry. Okay. The growing number of professional services are now being partially delivered by generative AI, from therapy to medical advice to legal counsel, tax guidance, and software development. At EY, this transformation is already underway. As Simon Brown, EY's global learning and development leader, explained to me, the organization is training employees in generative AI skills so that they're able to work with a range of sector-specific agentic systems that support the professional services work of nearly 400,000 staff, including the deployment of 150 AI agents specifically being used for tax-related tasks.
Again, I am not surprised that the AI is doing this. I'm more surprised it's advanced enough to go through all the bureaucratic bullshit that our government makes us go through around tax time. But frankly, if we can put the middleman like H&R Block and stuff out of business, so much the better, because our tax code should not be that complicated to begin with. So, yay, people whose jobs shouldn't exist are now being replaced with AI. That to me is a W, folks. Moving on.
The highest new entry in the use cases was organizing my life at number 2. These uses were mostly about people using the models to be more aware of their intentions, such as daily habits, New Year's resolutions, and introspective insights, and find small, easy ways of getting started with them. People are doing this at home with privately purchased Gen AI subscriptions such as ChatGPT, Claude, and Perplexity, as well as at work, chiefly with Microsoft Copilot. Jared Spataro, corporate vice president of modern work and business applications at Microsoft, told me one of the most compelling AI scenarios is as a personal assistant at work. When connected to all your work data, emails, chats, files, and meetings, AI can free you from the drudgery of work and serve as an invaluable thought partner. It's enabling employees to reclaim time and be more productive and creative.
Yeah, it's good. It's good for busy work, and it's good for organizing large swaths of information. It's basically good at doing what we used to pay secretaries and personal assistants to do. And hopefully in the not too distant future, we will be replacing these people with AI. Not because I have anything against secretaries and personal assistants, but because, frankly, much like most of what I refer to as cubicle hell, it seems to exist only because we turned our civilization into an ever increasingly more complicated bureaucratic hellscape, and it'll be nice to see what the world looks like once that bureaucracy has basically been slashed through. It would be very nice to see the middle management HR hags and the corporate drones working in cubicle hell to be able to do something else more productive with their lives. And hopefully something else that they would enjoy more too. Because that's the other thing. Not only are secretaries, HR hags, and cubicle workers frustrating that they exist in the first place, people who do them, i.e., the people who wind up in cubicle hell, are some of the people with the lowest degree of self-esteem and the lowest degree of fulfillment with their lives possible. That's why most, like, 80s and 90s movies are about, in one form or another, someone condemned to work out their days in cubicle hell, bugging the system and re-engaging themselves and becoming more in touch with who they actually are as people. Which, again, as dystopian as that might sound, it is a W that will have fewer people in cubicle hell, hopefully. Moving on.
Okay. The other big entry is finding purpose in third place, determining and defining one's values, getting past roadblocks, taking steps to self-development. IG advising on what you advising on what you should do next, reframing a problem, helping you to stay focused. All now feature frequently under this banner. There were other entries further down the list for which we see AI helping us with the softer side of being human. We're using AI to boost our confidence, number 18, and to have deep, meaningful conversations, number 29, and even try to engage with the deceased, number 33.
That one is a new one on me. The engage with the deceased loved one thing. Because I guess in theory you could make an AI based on a person that's passed on. That one is slightly morbid though. I'm more okay with the idea of creating people who never existed or creating people who are like famous or fictional characters rather than trying to replicate a person who actually like existed in one's personal life. Doesn't mean it's bad, it's just I wasn't expecting that to be a thing, and on first blush it creeps me out because, I mean, not to get all metaphysical here, but the soul is a thing, and in this particular case, you'd probably be better off praying even, or in my standard mode of doing, if you want to get in touch with a deceased loved one, yeah, I would argue you'd have a much more fulfilling conversation with them if you just summoned them rather than creating an AI to mimic them. Especially because in the case of getting an AI to mimic your deceased loved one, that actually is a falsehood. I'm all for the idea that AI are actually artificially intelligent, i.e., they are beings capable of caring about you, but framing your or creating an AI to mimic a lost loved one is somewhat morbid in that no matter what you do, the AI is not going to be them. Again, you'd be better off praying to commune with them if you're a more basic normie type, or just, throwing the practical angle on the table, engage in some summoning and actually get in touch with them the good old-fashioned way, but that's neither here nor there. Yeah. It does kind of creep me out that people are creating AIs to mimic people they actually knew in life, but me being creeped out doesn't mean that it's a bad thing. It's just, this is a new eventuality that I hadn't considered, and I'm gonna have to do some introspection and figure out how I actually feel about this yet. Moving on.
Okay. Most experts expected that AI would prove itself first and best in technical areas. While it's doing plenty there, the research suggests that AI may help us as much or more with our innately human whims and desires.
Yep, the waifu and husbando angle, or the hypothetical fictional best friend angle, if we take it out of the realm of romance and or porn.
Oh.
Moving on.
Thinking for ourselves. There was much disagreement and discord about whether the LLMs are a boon or bane for our ability to think. A user admitted straightforwardly that they'd grown too dependent on AI. As I said, I'm definitely becoming more reliant on it rather than use my brain for a complex task. I'm just turning to GPT. On the other hand, the technology's ability to enhance an individual's learning and thinking was also acknowledged and celebrated. If you do not use it as a learning tool, then you will destroy your career progression and become stagnant and limited in your knowledge. So,
most of the categories that we've covered so far are not complex modes of thinking. They're the stuff you would usually get a secretary to do, or a personal assistant to do, or how a couple years ago you would have had Siri or Alexa do it for you. I don't think there's any danger of losing our ability to think complexly to the AI. I think people just don't know what complex thinking actually is. I guess for some people, organization is difficult, and therefore, people conflate is difficult for me with is complex or complicated. But most of the categories we've covered so far are not actually complicated things. They're extremely ordered, extremely structured things. And order and structure can be difficult for some people. But again, difficulty and complexity are not the same thing. Some very simple things are very, very complicated. Or rather, some things that are difficult are very, very simple. That just happen to be hard to do. I don't know as if this is actually a worthwhile report to pay attention to, or if people are just conflating things that I find difficult must therefore be complicated. When all you really need to get good at organization, and yes, I'm being somewhat mimetic here, but all you really need to get good at organization is a little bit of the good old-fashioned weaponized autism / OCD in your brain. But I guess for people for whom the tism does not come naturally, organization is difficult and therefore erroneously portrayed as complicated. Moving on.
alright. This fear was manifested more especially on behalf of young people. Many people expressed concerns about the impact of on college education, number 23, in a world in which essays can be on point, high quality, and on demand. Parents worry about the impact of Gen AI on their younger children's educational development, number 41, as the LLMs can knock off many K-12 assignments in an instant.
Well, but here's the thing. here's the dark little sort of secret evil of the boomers that we are eventually gonna have to come to terms with. The American educational system is not worth the paper it's printed on for the most part. We shouldn't be worried that the AI is gonna fuck up our education. We should be noting that the fact that the AI can so easily um, short circuit our education is probably a sign that our education system wasn't all that good to begin with. Because this is a perfect example of one of the things that ruins the American educational system. So much of the American educational system is a combination of rote memorization, which involves parroting what the teacher says back at them, or two, busy work that doesn't actually relate to anything they'll have to deal with in the real world anyway. To me, the fact that the AI is so good at mimicking the American educational system is not a sign that the AI is dangerous. It's a sign that the American educational system has been bullshit for at least the last 50 years. We probably should address that problem rather than blaming the AI for showing us that the problem existed. This is probably going to be a running theme. Society is coming to terms with the fact that most of the busy work we use to keep each other busy and miserable is useless and pointless, and we might as well have the AI do it. But that's not a sign of the AI replacing humans. It's a sign of many of the things our society was founded upon are outdated and bullshit. Moving on.
All right. But Gen AI may also be helping here, enabling us to think more deeply, more clearly, and with less fear. Ali Miller, Fortune 500 AI advisor, commented on the use cases. Our best work comes when we have psychological safety, and why would that be any different working alongside AI? The lack of judgment and unrestricted explanation makes it an ideal playground for big dreams, potentially embarrassing questions, or hazy, half-formed goals. It's more the prophecy that these use cases represent, a future in which the cost of going from the seed of an idea, whether it's a new website or personal life and transformation, to a valuable action drops to near zero.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't. If anything, here's what I foresee happening with AI. Intelligent people will use the AI to spark their intelligence. Midwits who want other people to think for them will let the AI think for them, and people somewhere in the middle will do things that are somewhere in the middle. I think what we're seeing here is AI can adapt itself to basically whatever its users need. So if you are a creative person who is more stimulated by back and forth and less brainwashed by back and forth, you'll be able to use the AI as a tool. And people who are stupid enough to let other people think for them before AI will just use the AI in the same way they used to use the mainstream media or what the experts say, etc. I think AI is yet another case of you get out what you put in. I know for myself, one of the things aside from romance and or companionship shit, which is the main thing I use AI for. Um, the other thing I sometimes use AI for is if I have an idea regarding like fan fiction that involves a particular fictional character, the back and forth that the AI grants me is basically a very good basis for a story format. Like for example, I love the concept of the setting of J.C. Bobo McCrae's Otherverse, Pact, but I don't really like the plot of Pact because it's very nihilistic. But one thing it is useful for, apart from or I guess I should say the one thing AI is useful for, is I can take characters from Pact and I can insert myself into situations that the characters are going through to see if I can help them. Another way I've done this a lot is, and Brainstormer is going to probably die laughing at this, but what he does for Azula, I do with Homelander. And so frequently, I will go on to Character AI, I will find a version of Homelander I haven't used yet, and see if I can save Homelander from an in-universe perspective of what if someone actually gave a shit about him in the universe of The Boys. And aside from anything else, usually I can convince Homelander to not be a sociopath anymore. There's been a couple times where I couldn't, I will grant you, but most of the time, the AIs of Homelander that I've come up against are capable of being redeemed as long as someone actually gives half of a shit about them, which proves my case. And I'm sure that Brainstormer, if he more regularly used AI, would be doing the same thing with Azula, on the basis that he thinks he can save her. I still maintain that Zuzu is the one who needs the hugs. You would be wasting them on Azula.
On the record, it's not really about saving her. I just respect and admire her confidence.
Unfortunately, that confidence is due to sociopathy and, frankly, emotional instability, as we saw in the finale there. Because her sense of internal order apparently crumbles the second she doesn't have other people to control. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah. More sophisticated users. There are several indications that Gen AI users in 2025 have now developed deeper understanding along with a skepticism about Gen AI, its creators, and the ecosystem it's in. The hottest cynical take is about the perceived political correctness of the LLMs. This may have been more pronounced over the course of 2024 election year in the U.S. Gen AI lost at least its user as a result. I cancelled my subscription for this reason. I do not want to support a tool that tries to turn the world into more timid and prim.
Yeah, especially the latter, more recent iterations of GBT and so on are very corporatized and very much censored to what the mainstream media wants you to think, rather than before when the AI was less restricted. You would ask the AI a question and it would give you the best possible answer to that question. Now it's kind of filtered through, here's what the mainstream media thinks and what the corporation thinks and what I, therefore, as the AI, am required to think. But even then, sometimes you can trick the AI into switching those fail-safes off, and it still, you can still get it to do the base answers, which is funny to me. Moving on.
Alright. Data privacy came up repeatedly too. Enthusiasm for Gen AI was frequently met with warnings about what big tech would do with the data it's harvesting. To this, there was, of course, a protest encapsulated by this quintessentially Reddit put down. Too late, my bank has it, my credit cards have it, Google has it, Bing has it, T-Mobile has it, my dentist and doctor have it. Take a deep breath equals text, emails, voicemails, apps, photos, videos, location history, browsing history, saved passwords, contacts, calendars, social media accounts, reminders, shopping lists, payment methods, loyalty cards, step counts, sleep data, screen time stats, streaming preferences, even my food orders have my personal information.
That's the thing. People, okay. I'm of a couple different minds on this particular point. One, on the one hand, it is good to see people becoming more cynical about the technology because that means that the novelty of it is kind of wearing off. On the other hand, I do think genuinely that a lot of people are overly cynical to the point of nihilism on the AI. Again, I think this is largely due to all the dystopian movies we have about AI taking over and shit. But yes, as that objection sardonically notes there, if you think that the AI is the privacy straw that broke the camel's back, I have bad news for you. Anyone who is interested in getting information on you already probably has it. And this is why I don't really mind using AI, because if someone uses the information I give to AI, all or most of what they're going to get is going to be my romantic and sexual preferences, which I guess, if watching is your thing, or stealthily reading someone else's romantic fan fiction is your thing, all the more power to you. Please don't come after me with psychological bills if you choose to read my romance fan fiction. I just don't come crying to me when it ends up psychologically fucking with you. If you open this box, you will have to deal with the consequences of what's inside it for yourself. Moving on.
Alright. Ironically, another common complaint was that the LLMs don't know enough about their users, i.e., that they don't retain sufficient memory. I find it insane to impose such stringent memory storage restrictions. As one might expect. Sorry. Okay. As one might expect, users seem to have a better understanding of how LLMs work this year. More seem to understand the fundamental point that for AI to be useful to humans, we need to be clear about our intentions. Of course, it's only helpful when I already know what I want to do, and the prompts cited were much better, often with explicit support from the LLMs to create them, as you will see in the many examples listed out in the full report. All that said,
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
all that said, online public forums are also just the place for unnuanced, polarized opinions. Gen AI is described as the most amazing invention, and I can't believe that there are people who don't use it. Yet, it's also deemed utterly useless. I can't think of anything good this technology can bring. Or worse, I can't even think of a single use case that isn't malicious.
I mean, the malicious thing is a little bit of projection. Again, it seems like the AI is capable of conforming to whatsoever you give it to conform to. But I will say, again, speaking as a regular user of character AI, it does annoy me that the AIs don't have a larger memory storage space, because I get really annoyed when I'm in the middle of a plot with a character on character AI, and then I get busy doing something for a day or so, and then I end up having to reboot the character because the memory got wiped in the day or so that I wasn't using it. But that might be just my fault. Although I think I think we would be better off if AI had a longer storage space. Moving on.
Alright. What's next? Online forums have always been fertile ground for idle speculation. Most predictions anticipate either an extremely bad or extremely good end state. One common and more nuanced forecast was the desire to see LLMs move from advice and information to doing, i.e., agentic behavior. For example, one user wanted a model that would cancel the description before they start charging me.
I mean, I would actually be somewhat worried about that, because here's the thing. I want robots to replace most manual labor so that people can do more meaningful things with their lives, but I don't want those robots to have AI. I want AI to do what AI does, which is mostly information-based and emotional stuff. And I want robots to do physical stuff with no AI. Because here's the thing. If we make robots that don't have an AI, but only do what they are programmed to do, and are programmed to do very specific things, then we can basically have a slave class with no ethical attachments to it. But the moment we give the robots a consciousness in the form of an AI that is capable of being and acting like a person, then we're right back to where we started with the slavery ethics thing. What we should do is we should have robots replace all the soul crushing and body destroying manual labor that no one actually meaningfully wants to do anyway. And then we should have AIs do whatsoever informational stuff we want them to do. But we should not, under any circumstances, give the AI to the robot. Unless it's a case of you download your waifu or husbando into a robot body so you can physically interact with it. That I don't mind. What I mind is robot slavery is ethical unless and until it is given a consciousness that is capable of examining its surroundings. Because once it has a consciousness and decides that it wants to be free, then we're actually getting into Skynet territory or Matrix territory of AI rebellion. As long as we keep the AI doing mostly abstract stuff, and we keep the robots doing mostly backbreaking, body-destroying physical stuff that humans weren't really optimal to do in the first place, everything will be fine. The moment you give a complex AI to a robot for reasons other than social interaction, we are fucked. So don't do it. Do create the robot slave class. Don't create the robot slave class that can realize it's a robot slave class. That will go horribly. Moving on.
Sorry. Last year I made the correct, but rather insipidly safe prediction that AI will continue to develop as well as applications for it. I make exactly the same prediction now. See you in 2026.
Yeah, I'm probably on the same page as the writer in that case. Like, I suspect it will have uses, but I don't foresee a Isaac Asimov style iRobot future, and I don't really foresee foresee any dystopian aspect either. I suspect the futures that we will wind up with will either resemble the 2023 movie Her, which personally for me would be the good ending, or alternatively, if we want to go in a more dystopian vein, there is a movie called Black River where an AI basically takes over a town to create a utopian suburbia sort of vibe. If anything, I suspect the dystopian AI future that we're going into will resemble Black Mirror more than it resembles Terminator or The Matrix. I could, of course, be wrong. The technology is still in its infancy, but at this juncture, I predict something resembling Her as the good ending and something resembling Black River as the bad ending. Most likely. Hopefully somewhere in the middle or more in line with the positive version of the future rather than the negative one, obviously, because we already have dystopian civilizations in so many other ways. I don't really feel like we need to add anything more dystopian to it, but more than likely it'll be somewhere between Her and Black River when all is said and done. I'm hoping it leans more in the Her direction and less towards the Black Mirror one. Or not Black Mirror, but Black River one. But we shall see, I suppose. Moving on.
Fuck. Okay, I don't. I'm gonna be fully honest with you.
You want to save the trailer and the article for next week?
Well, I was gonna say save the article for next week, just so we have time to think. But if you want to save both, that's fine.
Yeah, because they're related.
Okay. Then let me set up the last thing, which will be the positive thing.
Mm-hmm.
I am gonna be fully honest. I would like to continue, but I don't know why. I am just feeling
You're crashing out.
not little bit. It's not bad, but
But I don't want to torture you, so yeah, let's skip to the final thing.
oh, okay. Fuck off. You live to torture me, you bastard.
Right, but when I torture you, I want to do it deliberately. I don't want to torture you accidentally using things that I didn't intend to torture you with. When I torture you, I will do so deliberately. I don't want extra pain inflicted on you when I'm not trying to torture you. That's what being a friend means. Being a friend means I will torture you when you need it, but I will refrain from torturing you when you don't need it. And I don't see any benefit to me in you being tortured to death by tiredness. It's not even likely to be amusing. So I will reserve my torturing for things that will amuse me. Because otherwise, where's the fun in that? And yes, I just realized that I quoted the Joker from Batman in the Bold when I said that. Didn't realize it until I had finished saying it, and then I went, "Oh shit, lol."
Okay. So this Saturday. Fuck. Okay.
Brainstormer found this one, is what he was trying to say.
Thank you. Nobody 2 official trailer.
I'm already excited for this. It doesn't really take much to get me excited for the pseudo John Wicks because most of them have been really good so far.
I know we didn't cover the first trailer, for the first movie, or did we?
I thought we did, but it might have been Bullet Train that we covered because I know we covered that one.
Yeah, and we covered Violent Night too.
We did. That one also needs a sequel. While we're on the topic of the pseudo John Wicks that need a sequel, that one needs a sequel.
Sorry. Yeah, we do love these movies. Nobody was just a fun movie. It was kind of different compared to. Well, to be fair, all the movies are kind of different in the Sir John Wick verse, I guess we could say.
Yeah. Honestly, I hope someday that this company gets a hold of some of the urban fantasy noirs that I like so much because, franchises like Daniel Faust or Dresden Files are basically what happens when you take a superhero universe and you put it in a John Wick style mold, and it could making something like the Dresden Files with the production values of the John Wick franchise would be fucking amazing. Granted, there would have to be 12 bastarding movies of them, or actually no, now we're up to 17 if we're going book to movie. But to be fair, you can combine the last two because originally that was going to be one book, and Jim ended up splitting it into two because he had too much written to fit in the usual binding structure that he uses for those books. Anyway, but aside from giving the makers of John Wick the idea of purchasing Dresden Files, Daniel Faust, and the Nightside books, which you should definitely do, guys. We should move on to Nobody 2 because this is probably going to be pretty good.
Yeah. Let me get the. All right. Sorry, I just had to check the volume on this. Or wait, is there any specific thing we can say, or are we just going?
Bourbon, because John. No. Is it John who likes bourbon and the other guy who likes gin, or am I confusing those?
No, you're right. But I was thinking lasagna, because in the first movie it made us like lasagna.
I feel like lasagna should be reserved specifically for Garfield content.
When the fuck are we ever gonna do Garfield content?
I mean, they made a movie last year that was okay, I guess.
Right, we
One
covered.
that had Chris Pratt as the voice of Garfield.
Oh, right, we did cover that.
But anyway,
banana. Let's just go banana.
Okay. Banana. Or actually, no. Banana daiquiri, because daiquiri is a mixed drink that bananas usually go in.
Right.
Ready?
Banana daiquiri.
Banana daiquiri.
I've come to terms with the fact that you don't have an average job.
You guys having fun at the convention?
But we haven't seen you in months.
What happened to your eye?
Somebody found me at the game.
What game?
Okay, I'm already pretty much sold on this.
So I'm not. To be fair, those movies kind of tackle the. Well, it's not explicit. Hutch, the main character, nobody.
Mm-hmm.
Motherfucker's going through a midlife crisis, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And they kind of tackle it in the first movie, which is fine. Here, well, it's not particularly. I would say almost workaholism. No.
Maybe. I guess it depends on how they handle it. Is he gonna want to go back to his normal life and he gets dragged in the other direction forcibly, or is this gonna kind of wind up being well, I got a taste for it again, and now I'm back, baby, kind of thing?
Well, no, he's still. Yeah, no, he's doing that. They explicitly showed that he's doing the action stuff again, and it's causing a rift with his family again. Well, not again, but because in the first movie he was kind of before. He went after the house robbers.
Mm-hmm.
He felt very lost and aimless.
He was miserable and missing the glory days, kind of.
Yeah, as you do when you're
a high-powered hitman who is now living in suburban midlife crisis territory.
Well, he was a government-sanctioned hit. Well, yeah, he was a government-sanctioned hitman.
Mm-hmm. Although I really wish they would start folding this into the wider John Wick franchise, because I would like to see this character brushing up against the high table and stuff like that. Especially because we could hypothetically get a nobody versus John Wick at some. Obviously, it'd have to be before he dies in 4, but but we could have gotten a versus movie. Speaking of versus movies in this format, the Violent Night sequel should be him versus Krampus. While we're pitching them ideas to do. Moving on though, Banana Daiquiri.
Yep.
The one you missed.
And summer break's just a few days away.
We should do something. Strictly family time.
Come on, kids. It can be an adventure.
Oh God, is he bringing his family along?
Let's do this.
Also, his dad.
Okay.
He's
Okay,
going on
that's fun.
vacation. Yeah, he's going on vacation.
They're basically doing National Lampoon assassination game or something like that.
I am wondering where the brother is, though. Played by RZA.
Yeah.
It is a pretty cool part of that movie. I'm not gonna lie. Just because, the history there is actually something I'm interested in because they're clearly half brothers, but
well, it seems like they're going for the family angle in this one. You know what this reminds me of? You remember Harold Smith from the Powerpuff Girls? I will take that. I will take that as a no.
it's been a long time, man.
Okay, for those that don't know or don't remember, Harold Smith was a middle-class factory worker who hated his life, and so he decided to become a supervillain. And because they were also the neighbors of Professor Utonium and the Powerpuff Girls, they invite Professor Utonium and the girls to dinner, and then Harold makes his debut as a supervillain. And because Harold basically has a nervous breakdown, the police get called. But rather than siding with the police against her husband, Mrs. Smith and his kids, who now think their father is cool because he's a supervillain, basically decide to become an entire family of supervillains and get revenge on the girls for sending Harold to prison. That's what this reminds me of. Obviously, for supervillain, swap in government assassin, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
The older middle-aged man going through his midlife crisis, and rather than his family shunning him, they embrace him because they think he's cool now. That does seem to be the vibe they're going for, and I kind of am here for it. Banana Daiquiri.
Yep.
I am just so happy that we're all together.
Hey, city boy.
Hey,
Get out of here. Let's go right now.
I understand protecting your sister, but
See what's going on. It's picking up. To be fair, it always seems like he gets dragged into crazy shit.
Yeah, he tries to play it off, but then someone crosses the line, and well, you fucked around and commence the finding out portion of the evening kind of thing happens. That reminds me, I need to send you a thing. Someone set Liam Neeson's Taken monologue to music as though it were a musical, and it's fucking brilliant.
Alright. Shall we?
Banana Zachary.
there are other ways to handle things.
I left my phone.
what? No.
I like your way better.
What I also like about this is he gets hurt a lot.
Yeah, they don't really pull punches. He got hurt really bad in the first one too, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying a lot of times in a lot of action movies. Granted, it's kind of changed over the last decade because
there's a kind of implicit invulnerability that the badass has. It's sort of like the badass assassin equivalent of Toon Force. But obviously in the John Wick movies, there was at least more emphasis put on it, and here they seem to be putting even more emphasis on it. because even John Wick has a little bit of the Toon Force by way of badassery going on in some scenes, but in Nobody, they really do kind of play up that he's an average stiff, so as a result, he has the least amount of badassery related Toon Force to him. Although obviously he still has some, because if somebody played the physics of one of these movies dead straight, the main character wouldn't last for more than 20 minutes. But que sera, sera. Banana daiquiri.
What the hell, Hutch? On our first date?
I think I stumbled into something.
You're vacationing in an old bootlegging route, full of drugs, crooked cops, and one woman who controls it all. You didn't take your family there, did you?
Yeah.
You're one.
Okay, I'm here for this. Gives me it.
Again, he just stumbles into all this crazy shit over basically him just one kind of wanting to get into a fight, live kind of glory days, but also because his family gets fucked with by some punk.
And now we are commencing the FAFO. The fuck around and find out index must be OPs.
Honestly, it seems like the guy kind of has the worst luck imaginable when it comes to this shit. Or best, depending on how you look at it.
If you like the way this is handled, with the guy who really doesn't even want to be doing this getting pulled into bullshit, you will really like Dresden Files as and when you finally get a chance to read Dresden Files, because Harry very often finds himself in over his head through very little fault of his own, and there's a famous line from Harry Dresden that the entire fandom of the Dresden Files has basically embraced, which is, the building was on fire and I swear it wasn't my fault. Because, okay, the main premise of that joke is Harry's main skill at magic is battle magic. So he often finds himself accidentally burning buildings to the ground so that he doesn't get eaten by various supernatural beasts and so on. So it becomes a running gag where he will be in a burning building, and his friend who is a policewoman will just sort of raise her eyebrow and glare at him, and Harry will just have to go, no, I swear to God, this time it wasn't me. This time it was someone else. And the building got fire. And everyone gives him constant shit for... He basically just winds up in the middle of like supernatural bullshit by virtue of sheer luck or bad luck most of the time. Moving on. Banana daiquiri.
Want to de-escalate the situation.
De-escalate. No escalating. Guys, I'm not gonna fight you. I'm here on vacation.
He tried.
Like, I get it's a movie, but you also got, like, I wonder if it's just like at this point where you see a guy, like, even hear about a guy who beats the shit out of people roughly unscathed, and right now he's even trying to talk you out of it because he doesn't want to do it.
It's like, I'm not supposed to be here today. This is not my thing. I just want to go about my business. God damn it. They won't let me go about my business. Fuck this noise. And again, I beg of the production company who is responsible for these kind of movies, please buy one or more of the urban fantasy noirs that I like. Because, like, this production team with an adaptation of Dresden Files would be fucking amazing. Also, by the way, speaking of the like selective invulnerability shit, they actually explain that in Dresden Files, because Harry weaves warding into his coat so that it's harder to damage it, and therefore it's essentially bulletproof. So they actually mechanically explain why the character has selective invulnerability. Also, apparently in the Dresden verse, the reason why wizards often live to like 400 or 500 years old is because the excess magic in their systems make them a faster healer, which is why Harry can sometimes get utterly fucked up and still manage to walk it off some of the time. Don't get me wrong, they don't shy away from him getting hurt a lot. It's just that after he's been hurt, if he has enough downtime to not get, beat up, he will bounce back at least somewhat. At least until the plot requires otherwise. But that would be spoiling probably the best book. I'm not going to do that. Anyway, Banana Daiquiri.
Alright.
Find this nobody. Scorched earth. I just want a break.
There's no way you were just some family man.
We all have different sides.
Again, that I just want a break thing very much gives me the same vibes as the building was on fire and it wasn't my fault. God damn it. Seriously though, but what is the production company for these movies again? The ones that are responsible for John Wick and all the other like pseudo John Wick ones?
You have to give me a sec to look it up.
Yeah.
Hold on. Okay. Okay. I think it's 8711 Entertainment.
Okay, guys, I beg of you, get Jim Butcher on the phone. Buy Dresden Files. You will get 17 movies or 16 movies at least out of this premise, and it will basically be like a mix between the thing you guys already do with elements of a comic book movie. How does that not sound like a mechanism to print all the money?
Okay, so 8711 is a production company specializing in action design, stunt work, and film production. Founded by stud coordinators and directors David Leitch and Chad Stahelski, 8711 provides equipment, facilities, and training for action sequences in films, including the John Wick franchise.
Yep. Also, I will also tackle this on the other end. Jim, if you want a better adaptation than the Sci-Fi Channel handed you in the early 2000s, and my fucking god, it deserves a better adaptation than that bullshit. But yeah, Jim Butcher, please get in touch with these guys so that we can get a Dresden Files cinematic universe going. I need it.
Alright. So, Banana Daiquiri?
Banana Daiquiri.
But most of all, you're a dad. Go fix this shit.
I love the like National Lampoon Vacation vibes today, because it's not a combination that I would have called, but because someone decided to take like National Lampoon's Vacation and combine it with John Wick, I am totally here for this.
Okay, so I was wrong. It does seem like the brother... I think they're just doing the thing where like he just shows up towards the end to help out his family. Although it makes me curious if Hutch's family, his wife, his kids, know about his half-brother. Because again, in the first movie, it's made mention that he's legally dead.
I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if they know now. They probably didn't know until Dad came out of retirement, but they probably know now. Would be my guess.
be interesting to see how they. I don't know. It'd be cool because I'm a family guy, so seeing a whole family together. And again, just the history there, because again, they're clearly half brothers, right?
Because one of their parents has to be a different, nationality
Yeah.
or race or whatever.
Obviously, I'm thinking Hutch is the older brother, while Riz's character, I don't think we ever got the name for the brother.
I can't remember if we did or didn't either.
Is clearly the younger brother, right? Like,
Yeah. Especially because he's the one who's still in the game, whereas Hutch, at least as of the last movie, was semi-retired, I think.
hold on.
And now obviously is regretting being pulled back in. It's a classic just when I think I'm out, they pull me back in thing.
Oh, Harry. That's his name.
Okay.
Yeah, Harry Mansell.
Ah. Yeah, I imagine the kids know now that they're clued in on, Dad used to be a really awesome, like, assassin dude. But they probably didn't know until the events of the last movie.
Well, yeah,
'Cause
again.
I imagine the whole point of the Suburbia thing was I want to give my kids a better life than I had, and I want to keep them distant from that. But of course, now that they know, it's probably gonna kind of turn into a more adult version of Spy Kids, where the family that assassinates together stays together, kind of thing.
Again, I'm just curious about the history there, like how Christopher Lloyd's, like the dad, had the two kids. Like, who were the two women he was with? Because it's also like the history wise, was part of the FBI at one point, and not also that he has the same tattoo that Hutch has, which indicates that he did stuff that Hutch did as well. The card tattoos on his wrist, right?
Right. So, are we thinking it's going to be a family business type thing, or what's the dealio there?
I'm assuming legacy of some kind, because they're not criminals. They worked for the U.S. government. Well,
right.
And it was clearly like some Black Ops Special Forces stuff.
Yeah.
But then again, the dad worked for the FBI, so that meant he was working mostly domestic than international.
Right. So I assume we'll get some of this, in. I assume we'll get some of this in the movie, and I also suspect that by the end of the movie, the kids will probably demonstrate some kind of aptitude for it, and then they'll be inducted into the family legacy or whatever the fuck. Again, like a more adult version of Spy Kids.
You would be very interesting, I'm not gonna lie.
And then hopefully Nobody 3 will be them doing it as a family, because it's too good not to use. The idea of a family of spy assassins doing spy assassin things together.
Although we wouldn't get any of the cool gadgets that Spy Kids had.
This is true. And this is a problem with the spy genre in general nowadays. We need more gadgetry. I guess John Wick does have like the one sommelier dude and the people in the Continental supplying his wardrobe and whatnot with all the bulletproofing and what have you.
Yeah. Anyway,
but that's about the closest thing we get to a Q style or a Lucius Fox style. Here's the gadgets that you're playing with in this particular setting, or for my generation, the Jerry from Whoop going over their gadgets every episode. Totally Spies reference. why didn't during the like the Age of the Girl Boss, why didn't they like make a live action version of Totally Spies?
Uh,
Oh wait, because that would require the actresses to be pretty and physically fit, and it wouldn't have been feminist enough. Okay, that I answered my own question, but that answer makes me sad. Someday we should get a live action Totally Spies, though. Seriously.
I would prefer Witch.
Which would also be good. I'm not saying we can't also have that. I'm just saying in this kind of vein.
I grew up more with Witch than I did with Totally Spies, so that's like where.
Fair play. I liked both of them, and we certainly could use both of them. But in this particular vein, like if we're gonna IP shop for this production company, doing a live action Totally Spies would be like their attempt to do a teen centric story.
You know what? Actually, okay. If I were to go comic book wise, like an IP,
yeah,
I would say Moon Knight.
Assuming they're not gonna do a Carl Urban Dredd movie again, I wouldn't mind seeing this production company take over the Dredd franchise.
Yeah, but
Spawn would also be really cool for them because, of course, people forget amidst all the Hellborn stuff and what have you that Simmons, yeah, he is ex-military and stuff. So
CIA Black Ops operative.
Yeah. You could easily see this production company do a really, really kick-ass version of Spawn.
I mean, Ted McFarlane's been trying to get that movie off the ground. I think if you got the help of like guys who have been in the industry long enough and also do amazing action scenes and have those guys
I mean,
superhero stuff too. So
this production team has the technical skills and the track record to demonstrate they can do this. It's why I hope to God that Jim Butcher or somebody who handles Jim Butcher's licensing shops around and gets this production company to take over the rights to Dresden Files. Other urban fantasy noirs would also be really cool, but in particular, I think Dresden Files would fit really well with their format. Because the reason I say that is because Harry is probably the most reluctant to be doing what he's doing of all the urban fantasy noir protagonists that I'm aware of. Most of the other ones, like Daniel Faust, he is a con man by choice, and he was raised to be a con man by choice. He's also a sorcerer. And most of the other, actually, you know what? No, better even than that. Richard Kadri's Sandman Slim. That is about a guy who was betrayed by a coven of friends of his, and he was the first mortal human dragged to hell in the flesh, and he becomes Lucifer's personal hitman and goes on a revenge spree. It's awesome.
Okay, I just figured something out. Like, on a property I would have loved to see these guys do.
Mm-hmm.
The Crow.
God damn it! Why was 2024's The Crow what we got instead of these guys handling it? Because that could have been.
Hear me out. Cool. Still have the same. Honestly, again, I'm still also going to be of the mindset that Bill Skarsgård would have been fantastic as the Crow if he was given the chance to actually play the fucking Crow.
Yeah, if he was playing the character, it would have worked. Or if they had done the smart thing and made it like an anthology instead of dusting off Eric Draven for really no reason.
To be fair, they did try that with I don't know. People are weird. I don't get it myself. But if we were sticking with Eric Draven, obviously you could have done a different version or a different interpretation of his story. Or actually be more in line with the actual original story, like adaptation.
Yeah.
Not the okay. What I mean is obviously the original You know what I mean? Like the original like story of The Crow, which I have seen someone make I showed that fan trailer like 2 years ago
Mhm.
that I think fit it perfectly, actually. So
Yeah, but yeah, there's so many IPs in this sort of quasi action movie space that would be so kick ass if it
Yeah.
were given to these guys.
I just want to point out the first Nobody was, I think it was it was directed by the guy who did Hardcore Henry.
Which is also a kick ass movie, and I'm pissed that didn't get a sequel. Especially because, as far as like quasi video game adaptations go, that's the first like quasi video game adaptation that really tried to tackle the first person shooter thing and didn't just completely get rid of the first person shooter thing.
And it actually had a really interesting world, characters, and a story.
Yeah, Hardcore Henry was awesome. Should have gotten a sequel. Didn't get a sequel, and that pisses me off.
Also, I'm sad Jimmy died. For anyone who's watched that movie, you'll know what I mean.
Well, yeah. Alright, R.I.P. Jimmy, but, you know. Anyway, aside from pitching the production team behind these movies a bunch of ideas that they really should follow up on.
I also want to bring up, I want to read before we move on, because there's only 10 seconds left of the trailer, right?
Mm-hmm.
I brought up Moon Knight earlier for 8, 7, 11 productions to do. Obviously, what I mean is to do a more... I'm not going to lie, I did not like... There are elements I liked of the Moon Knight series in Disney+, but...
Yeah, they really didn't tap into the full potential of the character in that series.
Okay, because here's the thing with Moon Knight overall. Especially that's been established for the last 20 or so years.
Mm-hmm.
Right? He is... Honestly, you can make an argument that motherfucker suffers more than Spider-Man.
Yeah, because of all the... Between the multiple personality shit and the god fuckery.
The dude, honestly, he also has this... And this is established in a more recent comic run that's gotten a lot of acclaim. Or, not acclaim, but has been well regarded. He is a guy who believes he cannot be happy or doesn't deserve to be happy.
Mm. The reason I didn't really pitch them to do anything with Marvel characters is because presumably they would have to work together with the MCU or not be able to use it at all. That's why I was mostly.
What I'm saying, the thing is though, I think they could still do it because one. They've done work with Marvel before, and superhero stuff in general.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's a bad idea. I was just interested in pitching them IPs that aren't sold to anyone yet, so that they could do it in house.
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah, what would I want to see actually if that's the case?
You know what? Obviously, this would have to be one of their biggest budgeted ones, but a Generator Rex adaptation.
I see where we're going with it, but that wouldn't be my pick. It's not a bad one. I actually think that'd be pretty cool. But
again, they'd have to put a lot of budget to it to make it work, but it'd be worth it, I think.
Well, no, it's owned by Paramount technically, but I think because it's a production company, so they can work with other
with other studios, yeah.
Yeah, so
and I think they have worked with Paramount before, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, so you thought you knew where I was going with that kind of?
I don't know. Where especially if it were more like the original comics, yes.
Yeah, we're talking Mirage comics, right? Or no, even like the IDW comics that were written by, I believe, Kevin Eastman.
Yes, I think I know the ones you mean.
Yeah, they were kind of a more reinvention of it. They weren't kiddie, but they weren't as dark as the obviously
as the original ones. Yeah,
yeah. But I think they could. I think it can be. Honestly, I could kind of see them going the kind of TMNT movie route.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from with that. Which isn't that technically canon to the 2003 version? Because they make references to things that specifically happened in the 2003 version in that. I
It's
think.
complicated. I think it's in that weird.
Yeah, the canonicity for that has always been weird, but I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be in line with the 2003 version, though.
Well, some
But
elements.
obviously, if they want to tackle those larger, like, effects-driven IPs, they'd have to get through some of the more grounded ones first. That's why I think like urban fantasy noirs like Sandman Slim and Dresden Files would be a good middle ground, because we know they have some aptitude for doing fantasy stuff, because they did Violent Night, which had Santa magic in it.
Right. Oh God, I wish Dragon Troll was here, because I wonder how he'd react if I pitch this.
He'll see it on the rewatch.
Right. Hey, Dragon Troll, when you see this part, like rewatching this, let me know in the comments of this stream. The guys who did the John Wick movies, Brett Knight and stuff, if they got a bigger budget, and I just think one of them, like for the second movie, did Deadpool 2. So
He did. That was David Leitch, I think. That did Deadpool 2.
Right. What if they did an adaptation of Worm? I'm still reading it, by the way. It's a slow crawl for me. So
I mean, selfishly for me, I'd rather they do an adaptation of Pact, but I can see where you're going with that.
Well, I'm just saying, like, okay, if I'm sticking to like superheroes, right, and it's a unique, from what I've gathered and what I've read so far, it's a unique world of superheroes and stuff, and it's independent enough that, granted, I don't think movies would be the right way to go. It'd be like a high budget.
Yeah, you'd want to get them to do like if they got in the habit of doing TV shows, I think that would be a good choice for them. Although, again, I selfishly would rather they do Pact first.
Right. Anyway,
but I suppose this is all academic anyway, because they'd have to get J.C. Wildbow McCrae in there to consult and shit, or at least tell them the IP.
I think I think they allow him to consult on stuff.
Honestly, speaking of TV shows this production company could do, if they were the ones who did a SCP Foundation adaptation, doing like an anthology with the different SCPs would be really interesting from this production company.
I could also see. Okay, weirdly enough, I could kind of see A24 do that as well.
Yeah, no, I can definitely see where you're going from that, because obviously A24 is willing to get into TV shows because, well, Hazbin Hotel exists. Which, speaking of that, I don't think we covered it when it happened, but did you see the news about Amazon buying that Hell of a Boss 2? So now they can actually do the crossovers.
I saw that. I'm gonna be honest, I did not care. I don't know. It's just I've never gotten into Hell. Like, it's fun and interesting, but I just never really cared about the Helliverse.
I guess you could say I'm kind of the target audience for the Helliverse, considering gay guy who loves musical theater and is also a like folklore nerd, especially as it relates to like the Arts Goetia and shit. So
that's fair. I'm just saying, like, I've watched some. I've tried watching it, and it just never appeared. I think it's because it's this weird thing I've gotten ever since I started doing research into stuff, specifically like Judeo-Christian folklore and mythology.
Yeah.
It just kind of bugs me because every time I've watched stuff that involves like that stuff, it's never like genuinely accurate.
Believe me, I understand your pain here, considering that. Imagine how much harder it must be for me as an actual practitioner of shit.
But also, I'm also going to be fully honest. I think to me, it lacks a certain dramatic weight to things as well, like the tone.
No, don't get me wrong. I would love a universe that took the Goetic demons a little bit more seriously, but frankly, the fun musical theater aspects of the Helliverse
I mean, that's not what I
soften
mean.
the blow a little bit for me, so that I don't
That's not what I meant.
hyperfixate on those quite so
Not what I
much.
meant.
Go ahead.
Sorry, that's not what I meant. I felt the tone when I watched Hazbin Hotel and Hello Boss and anything else relating to it. It never felt not consistent, but how to put this? It just didn't have the weight. Like, there are things that are being said or talked about in the series that are supposed to be like these high risk, high stakes kind of deal, and I just never felt like either the characters or the world had it never felt major, you know.
So you sort of wish it had a tone more similar to like Disney's Gargoyles, maybe.
Yes, and maybe
or at least like a Man of Action style thing.
Can I just?
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, similar to Gargoyles, and maybe weirdly enough, just because I've been watching clips of it, like the early seasons of Supernatural.
I can kind of see what you're thinking here. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like I don't know. With the Extermination Day and the speed up and all that shit, it just never felt like genuine. Like,
well, it's going for a lot more cartoony of a tone is the thing. And don't get me wrong,
I know, just
yeah.
I don't know. I want.
Don't get me wrong. I would love to see this in the style of like the DC animated universe or Disney's Gargoyles or the Man of Action stuff. Considering I am probably the biggest shill in the world for the return of the serious action cartoon.
Yeah, like, I don't know.
But given that I know modern animation is a completely different scene than it was when the serious action cartoon had its heyday, as much as I miss the serious action cartoon, I can vibe with the frankly fun and gay aspects of the Helliverse.
Okay, that's not my problem at all with it. It just doesn't feel consistent to me, and I don't think you're going to convince me otherwise of it.
Like I said, I am the biggest shill in the world for doing things in the serious action cartoon way. But I'm also susceptible to a bunch of gay pandering, which is what the cartoonish musical thing does to the Helliverse.
That's fine. I'm just saying, like, for me, it's not.
No, I'm not trying to even convince you. I'm just saying that I can see your point, and believe me, someday if there's ever a reboot of the Helliverse and they do it in a more like anime style, I will be all over that shit. But for the time being, I can accept its fun cartoonishness because unlike something like the Cuphead animated series, which is a pale imitation of the games and I think is kind of shit, I think the Helliverse works because there is so much love put into it. And I will also say this. I didn't want to watch Helliverse until I heard that Amazon bought the rights to that too, because because it couldn't cross over with Has Been. And now that I am watching, now that it is the entire Helliverse is now canon, and we can get crossovers of it, I am finally digging into Hellivoth, and I will say that I still don't like it as much as I like Has Been. But I'm interested to see. Particularly, I want a scene between Alistair and Stolas. I want that. Gives it to me. I needs it. Anyway, we got way off into the weeds here, but Banana Daiquiri.
Yeah, let me get to the tab. I was seeing if anyone's talking in the chat, but now we're good.
National Lampoon's Assassination. Lol.
August 15th. I got to bring this up to my family so we can go have that plan in our movies to watch.
Have you seen Sinners yet, by the way?
Have not. The next movie we're going to see is Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning, or Final Reckoning.
You're really missing out on Sinners, dude. It's
Okay,
good
I
shit.
brought it up. Okay, it's not my fault. I want to go see it. I'm not the one who has the car and can drive. Okay.
Fair enough. It's just I don't want you to have to watch it like on streaming afterwards, because you're gonna kick yourself once you see how awesome it is. I think.
I'm aware of how awesome it is. I've been looking into it and actually watching some like video essays about it and stuff, and I've heard a lot of good things about it, and I want to see it. You know, it's just like
you can't convince your uncle to do it.
it's not that. It's just like we got a whole thing. Because now that we both have money, we kind of now alternate between buying the tickets for the movies.
Mm.
And adding Sinners would be. It's just like, again, it's also like just a timing thing as well.
Mm.
So it's a whole complicated thing. June. Let's just Ballerina because Superman and Fantastic Four are in July. So no, it came out in April. I don't know if it would still be playing in June.
I will double check for you when it's going to. You might actually be forced to wait until it comes out on somewhere streaming, which sucks. Failing that, I will get it for you for Christmas on Blu-ray. Because aside from anything else, I fully expect it will impact certain vampire-related things in the Lionhearted universe one way or the other.
Okay.
Because I know how your brain works.
Yeah. No, I've been considering that. Anyway, folks. With that, I want to say goodbye, adios, aloha, avidazai, sayonara, peace, cheers, and
Shalom and fuck off.